на сегодняшний день 4 антологии. И готовится, почти готова 5-я, которая выйдет до конца текущего года. Размах и количество языков, которые представлены в этих антологиях. В антологиях представлено 60 национальных языков, литературных языков, подчеркиваю, которые существуют сегодня, они живы, на них пишут, как можно увидеть, поэзию, прозу, драматургию, детскую литературу, публицистику, художественную публицистику. Мы пошли по лингвистическому принципу построения этих книг, то есть перед каждым подбором текстов в каждой из этих антологий дается справка краткая, очень коротко написано о языке, потому что многие не знают, что за языки, откуда они такие. Вокруг проекта возник довольно интересный фестиваль национальных литератур, который проходит ежегодно, уже, по-моему, 5 раз был, тоже он на разных площадках в разных местах. И где не только показываются достижения литературные, но и общекультурные. Том детская литература представляет 55 языков. У всех есть дети, и даже там, где нет такой художественной прозы, то она в любом случае представлена в этом томе прозой для детей, прозой и стихами для детей. У каждого языка есть иллюстрация детская. А эти иллюстрации либо были в реальных книгах, которые выходили на национальных языках, либо там, где какие-то тексты публиковались без иллюстраций. То мы специально заказали художникам, которые специализируются на национальном рисунке, чтобы они сделали иллюстрации для этой книги. И в целом это такая еще и разнообразная антология вот этой художественной иллюстрации получилась.
Ценность этого издания трудно переоценить. Оно очень важно, конечно, и для российских театров, и для национальной драматургии, для людей, которые пишут пьесы на национальном языке. И прежде всего их соединяет, конечно же, перевод. И поэтому очень важно, что этих национальных драматургов, которые пишут на национальных языках, переводили, в общем, практически лучшие российские поэты, писатели и переводчики. Потому что это добавляет тексту объем, масштаб и, конечно же, не может не вызывать зрительского и читательского интереса. Уникальность национальной драматургии, которая представлена в этом сборнике, состоит в том, что это пьесы, которые предлагают режиссерам-постановщикам совершенно удивительные возможности. Дело в том, что национальная драматургия сочетает в себе, синтезирует не только архаику и современность, не только какие-то мультикультурные, мультинациональные проблемы и языки, но также она представляет многообразие и многоплановость жанров. В этом сборнике можно встретить и комедии, и трагедии, и сатирические комедии, и сказки. Кроме того, каждая практически пьеса предполагает то, что в этот текст может быть встроена и опера, и музыкальный театр, и театр кукол, театр марионеток. Любой жанр театральной жизни может совершенно полноправно входить в этот текст.
Том поэзии самый многоязычный, мультиязычный том. В нем представлено 57 языков и 229 авторов из всех мыслимых и немыслимых уголков России. Для этого тома было переведено около 10 тысяч строк новых, впервые на русский язык, с разных языков. Вот этот мультилингвизм, он очень хорошо виден, потому что тексты даны двуязычно. Слева оригиналы, справа переводы, чего, в общем-то, никогда не делалось прежде. Если поэзия – это такая душа, что ли, народа, то прозаики рассказывают о болях и чаяниях своих народов на примере персонажей. Здесь очень много такое переосмысления 20 века, что происходило с теми или иными народами, потому что кого-то переселяли, кого-то еще что-то с ними делали, а кто-то пострадал там и так далее. вот, от установления советской власти или еще от чего. Причем в поэзии этого нет, в поэтическом томе. Там о другом говорится. А здесь вот такая вот доведена довольно интересная информация в живых картинах. Любое прозаическое произведение пишется путем приложения довольно больших усилий. А некоторые языки – это 12 тысяч человек, например, а может и меньше. То есть, когда проза пишется для очень ограниченного круга, то становится очень трудно прозаику как-то вообще выживать в нашем мире. Поэтому мы старались их как можно более удачно представить. Очень хотелось бы поблагодарить многих и многих людей, участвующих в этом проекте. И это как минимум 2500. Это и филологи, и лингвисты, и библиографы, и языковые активисты, и редакторы. Огромное количество разных людей, живущих по всей стране. Вот. Низкий им поклон за участие в этом проекте. Добрый день.
Good afternoon. So my name is Maxim Amelin. I am the chief editor of the project Anthology of the modern national literature that in different national languages in the Russian Federation. So today we are presenting our volumes of our anthology project. I would like to present my friends and the participants of our talk today. Kanta Ibragimov, the Chechen writer, the chairman of the Chechen Republic Union of Writers, the famous author, he is a wonderful person as well. He's my good friend, Alyona Karimova, poetess, a translator from the Tatar language, the winner of many awards, the editor of the volume of the children literature, Olga Bogomolova, theater critic and theater expert, one of the experts with our volume of the anthology of drama, and the anthology of dramatic works. I would like to pass the word to Kanta Ibragimov. He was the editor of the volume prose. There are 115 writers presented that wrote works in 50 languages. Kanta, please tell us more about this volume. Good morning, Maxim. Thank you so much for giving me the word. I would like to mention that not long ago in Grozny we had an all-Russian conference that is dedicated to national languages, and linguists and scientists talked about the fact that according to UNESCO, every day different languages disappear on our planet. This process, unfortunately, is also taking place in Russia, and I would like to mention that thanks to the support to more support from the administration. Some languages, fortunately, are developing. So talking about the volume, the anthology of prose fiction of Russia's peoples, I was the editor. There were 115 authors presented in this volume, almost all languages, even the Finnish language, the Moksha language, the Roma language, were all presented there and collected all in a single volume. Every language is a unique culture, a tradition in itself. And I guess that this project is a very we need this project for sure, and we all look into the future. And after the end of the pandemic, I hope that every year, this project will go on, and there will be 3 or 4 festivals throughout the year, held in different cities, and not like in the Soviet Union, maybe worse or better. We took place in national languages, and we tried to stage them in Moscow, in Ulyanovsk, in Grozny, and we also try to shoot films in different national languages, because we had such films in the Soviet times. We would like to propel this project, to move it forward, so that there will be a certain impulse, so that the Russian language literature and national languages literature would enrich, and new works would appear. We always remember that the Russian writers, Moscow writers, there was the Russian language was a certain bridge that paves us the way to the world scene. Thanks to this rich language, we have an access to the world literature and to the audience from different countries. And this project that we are trying to assess right now, we can see that it's quite unique. And in the Soviet times, back then, the anthology already existed. I have them in my library. The books by Soviet writers and authors, but we didn't have the anthologies of such scale back then. It's a unique project, and I would like to say one more time that I want this project to move on to scenes, to the screen, and we want to make a project with the Moscow House of Writers in Moscow, so that we have festivals 3 or 4 times a year. And we should try to create films in different national languages, because national authors who are writing in different national languages, it's very hard for them to find money to have their films in national languages. But in Dagestan, in Ossetia, for example, we could easily, in theory, shoot a film in national languages. So it's my opinion that we should expand. The word is a power, and the literature is something that we should be grateful too, and I hope that you will carry on with the project, and we will find some new poets and writers. And when we first mentioned prose, the interest was quite lukewarm.
But when you published the anthology of poetry and then a volume of children's literature, we saw that everybody wanted to be in that books. There was a waiting list of writers and poets who want to join the project. So I wish you to continue with your effort, not to lose interest in this project. And we are really grateful to you and to the project. You made us all friends. We learned new people. We met new co-writers. We are in the same boat, in the same country. We learned more about people living in Yakutia and Kamchatka, and they learned about us. So thank you for your efforts. It's very important for us to communicate and be friends. Thank you for your kind words. I would like to say a few words about the experience of what is becoming very popular now in the world and in Russia as well, is Yakut cinematography, Yakut films. But the basis of this Yakut films cinematography is Yakut prose. The writers are writing in the manner of sagas. And of course, there is a magic realism, and this prose quite monumental, fundamental prose became a basis of fundamental for Yakut cinema all over the world. This experience, I think they preserved their movie studios, Yakut film. Of course, it's quite a costly thing to establish a movie studio. Maybe we can use their experience to develop the projects of putting prose on the screens, to turning prose into scripts. We need writers and script writers for this. I'm being asked, did we have any censorship? Well, personally, I insisted for there will be no censorship in our books. In the prose volume, and then in the publicist pieces, you will see that every people, each ethnic group has its own concern, its own, I would call it, its own pain. This can be caused by various events of the, let's say, 19th century. In the 20th century, a lot of events caused a lot of pain in the past. Of course, there is a forceful collectivization at the time of the establishment of collective farms in the Soviet Union. And it is totally unacceptable from our point of view. Of course, there's a resettlement of people done by Stalin, repressions, mass repressions, Chechen people, Karachaeva people. These peoples live with this pain. Back in the Soviet times, it was not reflected in literature. It was not allowed on pages of books. But in the recent years, the national writers and poets do have this opportunity to express their pain in their writings. And I think we, in our books that we publish, these feelings are reflected very well. We need to talk about these things because it is residual pain. There is a feeling that when you live in a seclusion, that nobody's listening to you. We are discussing our problems, but nobody's listening to us. So our approach was to break this vicious circle and allow people to speak out, to express their concerns, to express their pains, to discuss these things openly. Now I will move to poetry, and I will tell you about this book. It is the most multilingual. Poetry is written in languages that there is no other languages using it. There is Ulchi language in Khabarovsk region.
Какая-то проблема с интернетом, Максим, произошла.
I think Maxim has certain problems with his connection and we cannot hear him. Maybe we will continue. Okay, let me talk about the drama volume. I'm very much interested, of course, in the publicist works, but it is a continuation of drama because playwriting and drama is very important for us. So when we worked on this volume, it was very interesting work for us. It was not only vertical and horizontal learning of this subject matter. Maxim and I belong to the generation that knows well about national drama before it disappeared, before the collapse of the Soviet Union. And in the theater institute that I graduated, we had a subject, Theater of the Peoples of the Soviet Union. So my introduction to the national drama started quite a while ago, and it was very important for me. And looking back, retrospectively, I think it was more important for me that foreign theater or Russian theater, you can learn about a lot about this. It's in the literature. But if we're talking about the Ukrainian or Lithuanian drama, it would be more difficult to learn. So my passion for the new languages and for national drama stays with me. It is very important for me. So when Maxim Amelin and his publishing house, Ogi, suggested that I start reading and we'll pick up the plays and drama pieces in the original and in translation for this volume, I was so much overwhelmed by this experience. This is a unique experience for my life. And when I saw this publication, I understood that the uniqueness was not that it was the best plays that was selected and published, but that they were translated into the Russian language. And the problem of translation stays with the culture. The Brits, the English, are making jokes that you are reading Shakespeare in different translations, and we keep on reading the same very Shakespeare all our lives. So in translations, you can see different meanings, different senses. Take, for instance, Chekhov's translations into French, Italian, or German languages. And of course, the translator, when he or she translates, puts the soul in the work. Maybe there is some additional meanings, and it is a certain corridor of senses and meanings. And the translator becomes the first theater director for the play. And that's why this book was exceptionally, extremely interesting for me. I saw how the translator is trying to get the meaning out of the original and interpret it and translate it into his or her own language. I think the history of translations by itself is a very interesting thing. It's not the structure of the play. The structure can be very different, and it's a national folklore, it's a national problems and national drama, national culture. But the modern translation gives me a way, an opportunity to walk along this corridor of meanings. It's a new look at the modern world. Thank you. Thank you for this. Thank you. In this drama anthology, there are various genres are presented. And there is mono plays for a solo actor. There is some vanguard plays.
Какова возможность постановки на сцене, на русской сцене этих?
So, is it possible to stage these plays in theaters in Russia, in the Russian language? Of course, this is a multi-genre. Some of these genres are pure genre. If it's comedy, it's comedy. It's a tragedy. It's a satire comedy. It's a fairy tale. And it's a purity of the genre. At the same time, the plays by themselves, the scripts are very interesting from the viewpoint that you can mix up various kinds of theater in it. It can be a drama theater, it can be musical theater, even opera. You can introduce, and it would be wonderful if we can use puppet theater, marionette theater, any forms and times and kinds of theater, including the theater of the shadows. I realized that you can set up fantastic theater plays, performances using this. Yes, I would agree to this. In this anthology, we have 70 authors writing in 40 languages. And the theater, of course, lives and develops in places where there is a demand for the national theater, where the drama writers, the script writers, the play writers are writing for a particular theater, even for a particular set of actors, like it was in the times of Shakespeare. So the writer understands the purpose and the context of his or her writing.
Где-то очень много актеров, много персонажей, потому что, чтобы...
Sometimes there are too many actors, too many characters, so that there is enough of them in the theater. For example, 30 actors, all of them should take part in the project, even if some actors just say a few lines, and that's all. And when there is no theater, if it doesn't exist in a certain region, it's harder to realize, to carry out this performance. We wanted to do it. The repertory theater requires plays. We wanted to give this additional load of texts so that they can be staged in other theaters. For example, the Udmurt playwright has a work. Why not stage it in Buryatia or in Moscow? It doesn't have to be exactly Udmurtia in this case. We wanted to have it this way. But after the anthology volume saw light, the pandemic broke out. I think that this will happen finally in its own time. I would also like to say that Alia worked with the children's literature volume. I wanted to ask you, what is her opinion? Will children nowadays read these fairy tales? Thank you so much, Olga, for your question. Actually, I believe that our anthology is quite interesting because there are different genres, not only fairy tales for kids under 12. There are some dramatic works there as well. Some Chuvash legends are present in our volume. So different ages. So some works will be interesting for toddlers, some of them for kids who are older. But you know, children's literature will always be very interesting. There'll be children will be keen on reading these fairy tales and legends. So you go to some bookstore. I know it myself because I'm a mother, and I go to a bookstore. I can see some classic children's literature, but at the same time, I'm looking for something new. So what is the percentage of folk literature and contemporary literatures in this volume? You know, the folklore was not included in the volume. That was our principle and our rule while compiling works. So one Chuvash legend is there. It was reworked. It's a separate and independent work that was elaborated from a Chuvash legend. So when somebody takes some folklore legend and tries to find his own vision, you know, a separate work appears. We have 55 children's literature works. 55 languages are present there, and we can see some simple works and some complex ones as well that have some contemporary lines plot lines. The contents are very diverse in different works, and I would also like to dwell upon the fact that there are many 201 authors, 870 works for children. Sometimes people don't understand you when you start telling them about this volume. They ask me, are these the only authors that we have in Russia? No, not. We don't have only 201 authors that were included in the anthology, but we have more authors for sure. We had to take something that we had at hand. There are some literatures where there are many authors, so we had to select, it was a hard process for me. I decided to make a note that if we look at the generation, we can see that the authors, they are not always elderly, as you can put it, but so there are 50 people who were born from 1930 1945, and from 1960 till 1970, there are also 50, 60 writers. So only 30 people are younger than 40. There are very few young writers. Of course, we took, some prominent writers. We picked them for our anthology, but still, you can see this fact. There are few young writers. This is the part of the national mentality in Tatarstan, in the Caucasian region. Literature is something that you can deal with if you are experienced. This is what these national mentalities think. So if you want to teach somebody, you need to be quite mature and experienced. So this is how our Russian national literature, children's literature, is different from the European literature. In the West, the literature is seen as something entertaining. You just need to entertain people. And if you put something complex into the literature, it should be done very carefully. So there is no mentorship in the literature. You have to be very careful if you want to teach somebody something. If you talk about the children literature profession, you all know very well that the situation right now, the writer is not always a writer. In most cases, these people have some other jobs as well. So national literature writers are usually teachers or journalists. So the older ones are usually school teachers, and the younger writers are usually journalists who work in some national newspapers. They can also be editors and publishers. So these are people of multi-job. Talking about the children literature, I would also like to mention one more important thing. If we talk about the children literature's anthology volume, despite the different cultural origins, children's literature authors have about 4 or 5 topics. National language topic, and that's quite understandable, because the children should understand that the national language is a treasure. Usually it's poetry about about the national language, about native language. If you translate it from different languages, it's called mother tongue, you know, in many languages. And a lot of attention is on the family ties, family relationships, not only with your parents, but also with grandparents. You can see that contemporary writers, almost all of them, they are writing about some things that were very important to them. Nowadays, young people don't believe them to be something quite important, and there should be some. There are topics on friendship, on treachery. So this is the usual classical set of topics. And if we talk about the anthology, I would also to show to Maxim. So there are some ornaments here. And this design was elaborated, and also a special for many national literatures. We also ordered these wonderful illustrations, and there was a special print ordered as well, special font. You can see these illustrations. They are done in different styles. We made this decision so that we don't have this one unique outline and vision. We want to show that in different regions they have they will have different illustrations so that they show differences. We had this elaboration between the writers and linguists, translators, authors, and artists, designers all took part in this project, and some librarians as well, people who wanted to be very active in this sphere and wanted to take part in this in the creation of this volume. I can talk for hours about each book. So we understood that we created this volume knowing that for 10-20 years they will be present in different cultural centers, that they will show a certain encyclopedia about the life of the Russian peoples. And this cultural aspect is one of the most important ones. Thank you so much for your attention. Alia, thank you so much. Maxim, when you talked about the National Poetry Anthology volume, you got disconnected, so I took the floor and we talked about the dramatic works. Now we can go on with the poetry. Alyona put it quite right. She showed us these statistics. Maybe this is the percentage that you can see in all anthology volumes. So young writers are very few. So the national language writers, they wanted to show some mature writers, those who are quite experienced and they achieved something in this sphere. But we also try to pave way to young and prominent ones. So this portal, Rus for all these anthologies are present there, and you can have a look at them anytime you like, from any country, any place in the world. Thank you so much, dear participants. Thank you, dear listeners. I guess that we are ending our talk. Maxim, I want to just to say a few words. Thanks to Olga and to Alia. They made our talk even more wonderful. Thank you so much. Goodbye. Bye-bye. See you.